been almost 2 months since the convoy has started. In your opinion, what are the biggest accomplishments so far?
Yeah, it has been. Well, it's been over 2 months for me because we started planning it the first week of February. But, there's a lot of small accomplishments from the convoy. A lot of people ask that question, oh, what did it really accomplish? But you know what? The governor, the mayor of Big Spring, Texas, actually pulled back his emergency declaration once the convoy started, and he heard us talk about it, so that's big. We've seen a lot of these bills get tabled already or taken off, whether that's because of us or not, who knows, doesn't matter. The fact that it happened is the important part. But the biggest thing I could say that the convoy has done is what you see behind me right here, right? Not just in California, but across this whole nation. People have started to wake up. They've started to come together. They've started to break that barrier of racial tension and all this stuff that the government tries to create. And you're seeing people just come together. They don't care if they believe in the exact same thing or not, but they believe in freedom, and that's what it's about, and they believe in what this country is supposed to stand for. And if that's all this convoy ever accomplishes is waking people up and bringing them together and having happen what you see right here and standing up, then it's a huge win in my book.
In your opinion, was there anything at all that would have been done differently?
They say hindsight's 20/20, and when you look back through, you always see something. You go, well, maybe we should have did that instead of this, or we could have done that over here a little differently. But honestly, at this point, I don't know that I would change anything. There's been such a spiritual and a lot of biblical references doing this. Whether you believe in that or not, that's up. It's your decision. But for me, it has, and it's been such an organic experience, and we've seen people just naturally come together that I wouldn't change anything at this point. No.
So, for someone who just tuned in to the whole movement, can you briefly explain what your movement stands for and what are your main goals?
Yeah, this originally started after we seen our brothers and sisters from Canada start. A lot of that stemmed from they were even more oppressed with this whole COVID situation up there than what we were here in the States. But when they started the vaccination mandate for both U.S. and Canada for trucking stuff back and forth, that's really why they started theirs, because a lot of their freight, a lot of their trucking is cross-border trucking up there. And that sparked us down here. And sure, it was about all the mandates, mask mandates, vaccine mandates, the shutdowns, the fact that the doctors were being silenced, right? And when we started talking about this, a lot of those frontline doctors that you hear about, Robert Malone, Richard Urso, Pierre Corey, Ryan Cole, Dr. Paul Alexander, they all got a hold of us and were like, hey, I think they seen that opportunity that we would have kind of a voice or a way to open that door for what they've been trying to say to be heard. And it's just kind of been an unstoppable train, because even though that's what it started as, it's not anti-vaccine, it's not anti-mask, it's not even, this isn't a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing, right? It's totally an American people thing, and it's not even the American people, it's a worldwide thing. This is happening all over the world. And really, it's about our freedoms. It's about, our constitutional rights. It is about our God-given rights. It's about human rights. There's so many of them that have been violated, not just through COVID, but when you look back through even before with this government and the tyranny that we have in it, and the way that they're puppets on a string to the big money of the world, and on a state level, they're puppets on a string to the federal level. So it's about our freedoms. There's a lot of people that have immigrated to this country to have freedom, and a lot of them that I know have told us, hey, this is kind of reminding me of what we escaped from, right? And they don't want to see this either. That's why people come to this country. And it's up to us, the people, to make sure that this government stays in check, because our military, unfortunately, just can't do it, because that's who they work for. So, that's really what it comes down to, is our freedoms as people.
So, speaking of politicians, I'm just curious to hear your opinion. What, in your opinion, is the absolute worst politician in office right now, and why?
Can we start with the ones that aren't? That'd be a shorter list. I don't know that I could pick a worse one. They all are so bad. I mean, you know, I don't like the president. I don't like the vice president. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I don't like this nuisance Newsom guy that we call him now. There's a lot. Even my own governor in my state of Pennsylvania, you know, Tom Wolf, he's a piece of crap too. They all are, because none of them, I shouldn't say none, very, very few of them really care about the people. What they care about is they get in that office on broken promises, and then they start getting paid by people to push certain things and do certain things, and they all become rich, and it's about them, and they don't care about the rest of the country anymore. That's why this country is in such a bad way, you know. I heard Chuck say it earlier. We have all these people getting paid for the rest of their lives, while there's people out here, you can see them on the street out here living in tents on the street, right? And I'm sure not all of them made bad decisions in life. They had something bad happen, and now here they are. But these people get to screw everybody over and live high on the hog the rest of their life, and they never really were a public servant at all. That's the point of this. They are public servants, right? Which means they're supposed to serve the public. And they don't. They serve themselves, and they serve the big money above them, you know. So, I mean, in my opinion, most of them are junk.
If you would have an opportunity to pass a message to them, what would be your message?
As my buddy Brian says, you work for us, right? And I would suggest that they either start listening to the people or get prepared, because I don't think with people waking up, they're going to be nice and do this the peaceful, polite way only for so long. And you're going to see what happens when you push American people around too far. And I'm not going to go into more detail than that, but it's going to get ugly.
So, speaking about the pandemic, how did the pandemic affect you personally?
Personally, you know, I guess in a way of business or financially, it didn't affect me. I drive truck, I own a trucking company, and obviously things still need to move, people still need to eat, you know, regardless. Did it slow down a little bit? In some ways, yes, but because it slowed down in some ways, it picked up in others. So I was okay, but what it did do is it made life for me to perform my job a lot different and a lot more difficult. We had rest areas that were shut down. If you were lucky, they replaced bathrooms with porta potties, you know, at a time where cleanliness was the key to staying safe. We couldn't go into a restroom and a rest area and wash our hands after we went to the bathroom. We had to use a gross porta potty that probably didn't even have any hand sanitizer left in it. Out of Massachusetts to New York City every day to the stores. I didn't have hand sanitizer. You couldn't find it. You know, didn't have hand sanitizer. Didn't really have any. I had a mask I wore. The only time I did it was if someone made me do it to unload somewhere. You know, couldn't find gloves like we were out here. Couldn't find food to eat, you know, because everything's shut down, and it's like, well, so what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to go to, if we're lucky, a grocery store. There was times where I'd deliver groceries, and then I'd go walk into the store and see what I could find to pack in my truck. You know, we had to live out of our trucks, which, hey, you know what? We can do that, but when you don't go home every day, you shouldn't have to try and cook in your truck every day. You know, that's the reason why there's truck stops and restaurants and everything, because we're out here and we live on the road. You know, if we wanted to be able to do all that stuff in our truck, we would drive motorhomes or something like that, not trucks. But it made it, you know, even finding parts for the trucks, because places were shut down and stuff, finding people to work on them in a timely fashion was hard. You know, I mean, I do all my own work, so it was easier for me because I know how to do it all. But guys that don't, their trucks were waiting in line for 2-3 weeks at a time to even get into a shop to be diagnosed, you know, and then God forbid it needed a part that's on back order. And that comes back to the shipping thing too, because trucks were already backed up, even to get the parts to fix the trucks. It was a horrible, vicious cycle. And although financially I still did okay, it definitely made it a lot more difficult to do our job from what we were used to doing. But we made it through. We answered the call when they put it out for us to keep going, and you know, we made it happen. That's what we do as truck drivers. But none of us want to have to do it that way. We want to be able to go park at a truck stop and walk in and sit down at a restaurant and eat a meal that we didn't have to make in our truck, or you know, sit down and converse with other drivers and stuff like that. So I'd like to see everything go back to the way it's supposed to be. I mean, or even, you know, use a bathroom. I mean, we had shippers and receivers that refused to let us use their bathrooms. So there you're sitting, you know, they hold you for a couple hours at a time. Oh, what do you want me to do? Go in your parking lot? Like, it's nature. You can't really stop it. But you know, the thing is we've seen as truck drivers, because we travel the whole country, right? We've seen what it did to the little restaurants we used to stop at, the mom and pop places, the little grocery stores, the little mechanic shops, the little fuel stops. They closed up because they either couldn't find people to work, or their sales went way down because people were forced to stay at home or felt like they were forced to stay at home. And we've seen that devastation that they created in this country. But the one thing that they didn't hurt, all the big conglomerates are perfectly okay and are still thriving because they're throwing money at this to make this happen, to make the little guy and make the mom and pops go away, because that just makes them the only place to go to. And what I learned in school is that monopolies are not allowed in this country, and there's a lot of monopolies out there that are beating the system.
What are your plans in California?